afternoon. Welcome to another edition of the program Business This Week on ITV. I'm Blessing AJ. Now today we're taking a lens to look at the energy sector crisis, the causes and of course the effect on businesses. And then when it affects businesses, it will definitely affect the economy. Now let's bring you up to speed on business activities for this week. The segment we call Business Roundup. Stay tuned. And Business Roundup, the story says oil marketers and depot owners have clashed over allegations of diversion of 16.6 billion litres of fuel to neighboring countries. A top official of the Depots and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria, who craved anonymity to newsmen, that the unabated fuel scarcity was partly due to the diversion of products to neighboring countries by marketers. According to the source, about 46 million litres of petrol is being diverted daily. This means about 16.6 billion litres is allegedly being diverted annually. Findings show that Nigeria consumes 60 million litres of petrol daily. The managing director, CEO of an oil firm and former chairman, Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN, Tunji Oyebanji, told newsmen that members of the association were opposed to smuggling, while the executive secretary, MOMAN, Clement Isong, said its members operate a fully integrated business model, adding that it would be impossible to smuggle products out of the country. National Operations Controller, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, to Mike Osatui, when asked to react to the allegation, said, if it is true, then it takes two to tango. Osatui denied the claim that IPMAN members were responsible for the smuggling of petroleum products to neighboring countries. The diversion allegation came on the heels of the return of long queues at filling stations across the country. The federal government of Nigeria on Thursday secured the biggest share of the $65 billion funding from the World Bank's International Development Association to African countries. This was as the international organization unveiled the 20th replenishment package IDA 20 in Dakar, the Senegalese capital, to help low-income countries respond to the COVID-19 crisis and build more resilient economies. According to a statement signed by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Gary Bashiri, 70% of the entire package, which amounted to $93 billion, will be chartered to various African states, with the largest share being allocated to Nigeria. The President, Muhammadu Buhari, who joined other African leaders in Dakar, said the largest financial package ever mobilized in the history of the IDA will prioritize some key areas such as agriculture and food security, human capital, climate change adaptation, bridging the gender gap, job creation, digital and technological innovation, among others. He also called on global partners for concerted efforts to help mitigate the aftershocks of the COVID-19 pandemic and stabilize developing economies towards sustainable growth. Buhari, who spoke at the opening dialogue of African heads of state on development challenges and priorities at the International Development Association Summit for Africa, convened by Macky Sall, the president of Senegal and African Union chairman, said Nigeria, through job creation, was determined to build an economy that is capable of withstanding shocks. And as it's on Business Roundup, let's go on a quick break and return to look at the energy sector crisis. Stay tuned.
The threat of global warming is real. You have seen the destruction of lives and property as a result of incessant flooding. Make the environment a conducive place for all to live in. Stop polluting the environment. Protect the environment today. This message is brought to you courtesy Independent Television and Radio.
Thanks for staying. Now let's look at the energy sector crisis, the causes of the crisis ongoing, the energy sector, and of course the effect. Yes, we'll be looking particularly at the distribution chain. Okay, so I've been joined by a business analyst, Emmanuel Boybe. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here again after a while.
Thank you.
Okay, so some years ago when the power sector was privatized, we now had different chains in the power sector. We have the transmission, we have distribution, and it just goes like that. So for some, it's like since the privatization, one part of that power sector that has always been having issues is the distribution, the discos. Yes. Right now, it's not just that the discos are having issues with consumers, because it used to be discos having issues with consumers saying discos are not distributing power, and then discos saying consumers are not paying for power distributed. Right now, it's discos, or some discos, with banks. Now, there's been a takeover of some discos by a particular bank, and the Benin disco was also affected by this. Now, what do you think could have been the cause of this current development where some discos have been taken over by a bank?
Okay. Thank you, Blessing. The reasons for Fidelity Bank reportedly taking over the 3 discos is that Fidelity Bank just only activated a right to take over their shares as a financier.
Okay.
You know, they obviously advanced facility to the discos, and the discos were not performing in their obligation.
Okay.
So they activated that clause as to take over, and of course the reasons given was for financial weak financial position.
Okay.
They were becoming insolvent, and then of course there were technical incapability on the part of the disco. So it was obvious that unless something is done quickly, and unless something is done like now, they may be unable to pay those exposures. And of course, you know, that would put the banking industry at risk. So before that will happen, the agreement with CBN, BP, and all that just had to get to swing into action to take over.
Okay, now let's go over the 3 arms of the power sector. We have the GENCOs, the part that generates the power supply, and then the transmission, and then we have the distribution channel, which is the discos. Now, even before this time, GENCOs have often accused discos of not remitting. Even the TCN have also accused discos of not remitting money for power supply, while the discos sometimes say there's energy theft and that consumers do not pay for it. While the consumers on one end would often say that they are overcharged for consumption through estimated billings. So with all of this bulk passing here and there, why do you think it has been impossible for this discos currently affected to have met the obligations to the banks from which they took loans?
Well, basically, the GENCO complaining that the disco are unable to meet their financial responsibility obligation to them is not unconnected with their difficulty in bill collection. But then again, that is linked up with the billing system itself.
Okay.
Metering system itself. And I think that there's presently there is an ongoing program now to ensure that that metering is taken care of. The challenge with that was that, since it was difficult for the disco to be able to collect, allegedly collect their, bills from the private sector.
Okay.
It was basically with the retail, the retail sector basically that they had that challenge. Because I think that there was a challenge with the corporate sector.
Okay.
You understand it? Because that was like wholesale, sale of power.
Okay. And most of them were metered.
No, most of them were metered. Of course, all of them are metered. So they were able to. So I do not know, you know, the books are not available for us to do a due diligence to. You can see the issues are all linked up. The inability of the DISCO to meet their financial obligation, both now to the banks that funded the takeover process in 2003.
Okay.
Because this problem actually dates back to 2003 when the privatization was done.
Okay.
You know, that's where it starts from. And of course now, operationally, being unable to pay for, like you're unable to pay for the raw material that produce your goods. The raw material is the power you got from Genco. You're unable to pay that. Then you're unable to pay to service the debt, you know, that was advanced by Fidelity Bank, you know, as it were. Those are the issues that seem to have culminated into all of this.
Now, looking at it, does it suggest that it's just an issue of the DISCOs unable to collect the bills for power supplied to consumers, or it's an issue of mismanagement? Because over time, they've cried out to the federal government on tariff increment. They wanted to increase tariff because they brought forward the complaint that they were unable to meet up with the cost of distributing power. And so on 2 occasions at least, it has been approved for them to increase tariff. So if tariff have been increased like that, and then you have some consumers who complain of being overbilled. So is it just an issue of the DISCOs unable to collect bills, or is also an issue of mismanagement?
Well, one can't allege mismanagement until you have looked at the books properly.
Okay.
Until an audit process is like a matter being in court and you are given a verdict outside the court.
Okay.
That's where it hangs for me on, you know, alleging mismanagement.
Okay.
But being unable to meet basic bills, suggestive of the fact that the revenue lines are most likely thinning out.
Okay.
It's not unconnected with the rising cost of operation, which for now, of course, the energy price going up, it's maybe one of those issues, as well too as operational expenses for running the DISCO's operation. So those are basically issues. Then again, I think we need to get down to issue of power in this country, just like, you know, petroleum.
Okay.
It's like one of those. Of this, the power sector we're talking about, 40% of the holding still is retained by federal government. Okay. So they have a right to, they have an owner's right to say, you can't raise the price of selling power for XYZ. And it's not unlikely too that they, besides being regulators, are now being part owners. They also would have looked at the books to say, no, from these income projection, you should be able to meet operating expense.
Okay.
You understand it? So, yes, I know all of the issues are related to being unable to meet the revenue targets, and of course, too, I am unable to allege mismanagement until you get into the books.
Yeah. Now, okay, before we look at the effect of this, now let's also look at metering. Why has it become like a very huge task for the DISCOs to meter every customer? Now, back when it was fully a government-run sector, when it was NEPA, now you had meters for almost every house that was connected to the grid. So though that's analog, but being digital, should it not be just a simple case of maybe replacement? You just know by the books houses that are already connected, or facilities are already connected to the grid, and then you replace the analog meters with a digital meter. There will even be programs ongoing to ensure that, at least 3 meters were distributed. But it seemed like it's just impossible to have every consumer metered.
I am unable to agree that it's impossible. That again takes us to the technical challenge that they said the DISCOs are having.
Okay.
Because the issue of metering, this takeover we're talking about happened in 2013.
Okay.
From that time till now, we have 9 years in between to put our house together and actually meter every house that needed to be metered. Just like you said, we know, yes, I know that of course there are increase in the consumer by the day, but by today I expected that you should just be able to walk into any of the power supply office and be able to get meter without needing to wait on the queue. So the backlog of those that cannot get meter, so it's not unlikely that is why you would have a huge percentage of energy theft.
Okay.
You get it? That's of course again why it is a little difficult. But then roll it back to inefficiency of the organization or inefficiency of the system. I think that is basically where the real challenge is coming from, because I don't think it is as difficult as not to be able to get a company to sign on metering contracts.
Okay.
It's not difficult to get the consumers to get meters, even if you have to deduct it over time.
Okay.
But as we speak, consumers, I know that there are evidence showing that consumers would even pay for meter even in a time where, of course, too, it's not actually logical for me to pay for the meter with which you want to use to bill me.
Okay.
But even at that, there are cases, reported cases of people paying for meters for 6 months, 1 year, over 1 year, they will not get meter. So there is issue certainly in technical management of the mismanagement, not of financial mismanagement, of operational mismanagement of the organization, as it were.
Okay. Now that a bank has taken over at least 3 discos, we know that for each disco they control maybe at least 3 states. For Benin Discos, it controls 4 states. Now, so that means like about 12 states will be affected. Now, when banks take over like this, what is likely the implication?
Okay, I hope that the banks are not taking over in perpetuity. Okay. They are taking over just to ensure that they divest or they put management in place to be able to run the organizations efficiently for the obligations to be met to them. That's basically what their role is. Looking at bank takeover, I like you to look at the economy. The economy is such that you have 3-4 developed sectors. The oil and gas sector look like the most developed. The banking sector is the oldest, most developed. And then you have the telecom, the next most developed. So if we go by that, the banking industry leveraging on their advanced management of resources and of humans, I have my hopes that the organization would only perform better, than, especially knowing now that they will actually be looking at making sure that they get right what the former managers did not get right, to be able to eke out the revenues that will pay down the exposures, which is the reason for which they took over. So I do not have any fear at all. Yes, the learning curve may just be the one, but it's not as bad, because I do know that the banking industry, like I said earlier, have good management in place, and of course it's one of the most developed sector in Nigeria. So we look forward to better days in the industry.
Okay, now having a good management, using your words, take over temporarily a system that hasn't been performing as expected in terms of living up to its financial obligations. Now, for the reason that was given, or one of the reasons that's always been put forward, why the discos are unable to meet financial obligations, which is the ability to enforce bill payment. Now, with the bank taking over, how do you see that happening? Do you see a situation where it's now possible to have consumers metered? And do you also see a possible increment in terms of tariff?
I'm unable to see, going the route of increment in tariff for now would be counterproductive. But I'll hope you know the truth that bank takeover is still going on with side by side with the metering program that is on.
Okay.
So it's just to fast forward that process.
Okay.
And I see the bank taking over to fast forward and to remove all the hiccups on on that process, pulling through. That will be the first and pragmatic thing to do.
Okay.
Another way to go about it is that I am unable to agree, because there are task forces here and there going for revenue drive.
Okay.
And of course, if there are confirmed energy loss, energy theft as it were, it's for the task force to be more focused on driving those, backlog of debt owed to them by consumers. And of course, I do know that banks are very focused and, proactive and pragmatic in recouping the debt. So I don't think that there will be difficulty in recouping confirmed debt owed to them by consumers. So, put all of this, then again, talking about efficiency. Efficiency might just be operational inefficiency.
Okay.
Correcting operational inefficiency is to look at the expense lines, and to look at what were the things we were spending on that we could cut down on. What were, that's not difficult to know.
In cutting down, would that also mean, at the end of the day, layoffs?
I'm unable to agree to a layoff, because that would not be that might not be the most that would certainly even not be what to think of. But when I talk about refocusing on recouping the debt, you need humans to do that.
Okay.
You need foot runners to do that. You need people going from house to house to do that. You need people calling on phone to do that. So layoffs will not be, I don't think anybody will be thinking of layoffs.
But what about in respect to efficiency, having square pegs in square holes? We'll talk about that after this break. Please stay tuned. All right, thanks for being there. Before we went on that break, we're looking at some of the effects of bank takeover of some discos, and we talked about possibility of layoff, which I guess you do not agree to. But looking at efficiency vis-a-vis layoffs, taking out round pegs out of square holes, do you see some kind of a layoff and replacement happening in order to ensure that there is efficiency in the system?
At the management level, because if part of the reasons for this takeover is the bank, they are alleging that there were technical inefficiency.
Okay.
So break the English down. It means that a couple of persons at strategic positions, not operational positions, at strategic positions were unable to do the required. So if it is skill gap, why not? We will be looking for those who's got the required skill gap.
Okay.
If it is knowledge gap, it's not unlikely that those knowledge gaps were situational. So if they were situational, those could be fixed.
Okay.
You understand it? So, but for skill gap, why not? A retraining might be necessary. Then, of course, a replacement at some point for some strategic position at in management could be done. But I do not see a layoff that will panic the industry. Okay. No, I do not see that. Okay. Knowing too that banking and power industry are two separate industries. So they are not taking over so that the banks now want to start running. Okay. No, they're just bringing efficiency. For instance, control is control. Audit is audit. Okay. You understand it? Operation is operation. Okay. There are a couple of things that these are seamless, skills. Okay. You just move them from this industry, you move them to this industry. Okay. Human resource is human resource. Okay. These are things like I said, they are one of the most developed industry. The banking industry is one of the most developed industry in the country, agreeably, for over 100 years. They've been there. So it's just to pass on the efficiency you have in the banking industry to the power, to the disco, then they will just be able to put things right. And I do not think that it is more about layoff than about restructuring.
Okay. Now, this seems not to be an issue that is entirely the problem or even the cause of the discourse. Apart from these three discourses that have been taken over, there is also another that is almost at the point of insolvency, although that's not been taken, not been taken over yet. And then one thing that discourse have also complained about, apart from energy theft, is energy loss. From the point of generation, transmission, to the point of distribution. It seems like along that chain, some energy are lost because of obsolete equipment, which the discourse have claimed is not it is not something that is their responsibility to maintain. It has to do with the government part, which they control, and also that of the transmission to ensure that some of these equipment are either updated or maintained. Now, with this happening to the discourse, what do you think will happen with the other arms of the power sector? And what should be government's role at this point to ensure that everything that is making it impossible for the discourse to function effectively is handled?
Blessing, let's look at it this way. This arrangement is a short-run one. I don't know how long it will take, but I hope it won't be more than 1 year.
Okay.
It's a short run.
The takeover.
The takeover.
Okay.
Not so much of changes you would expect to find now.
Okay.
That's the truth of the matter.
Okay.
Not so much of changes you will find, excepting that they won't maintain status quo to see that, the financial mismanagement, alleged financial mismanagement, or financial misappropriation that was alleged continue. They also would not want to continue the technical incapacity of the but once those are the immediate to be fixed. But having said that, the error went to, if there are error in agreement, error in takeover, error in replacement of obsolete equipment, it dates back to the 2003 when this agreement of a takeover first of a takeover by the private sector happened. That's where it dates back to. Then again, you want to look at who takes on which responsibility.
It should have been cleared
then. But another is, it's not unlikely that the disco were underfunded when they took over, or underestimated the financial requirement of their operation. So all of those. So where you expect to put in much more money to funds to get, equipment replaced or repaired, we just didn't do that. So it's not that long-term thing will come after this time out. And at this time out, I don't think it will be more than 6 months to 1 year.
Now, be that as may, it seems like this is a cry for help in the distribution chain, and it should actually be listened to by all the stakeholders and attendants too.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. What might be a game changer would be, if in this 1 year or 1 year and a half, as worst case scenario, as the case may be, for this takeover to perform, if things really get better, then it will be clear that, mismanagement, as earlier alleged, could be the issue, and they want to fix that permanently. Another more permanent thing to look at is to therefore look at the contract that was initially signed for the takeover of the disco. That's another. But then again, in all of this, do not rule out the 40% belonging to federal government, so which makes power to not still be fully a private sector thing. So that's something to look at when we come back.
Slightly away from the disco issue, but this still is on the power sector. The federal government has actually announced that it approved the strategy work plan to speed up concession progress for 700 megawatts of the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant in Niger State. Is this some news, or how do you see it? Concessioning a power plant.
It's still about increasing the power generation capacity
yes.
of our country. When you say concession, what it means is that, oh, federal government has just given out power to XYZ company to be able to improve on the current power generated from Zungeru station. So it's something to be happy about. What we still been unable to meet or surpass the 5,000 we've been on for over the years, even though our power need in the country keep it increasing. This might just be
an additional 700 to it.
Might just, of course, also help us more. Not like it did meet all our power need for the country, though.
But it's just a plus.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also, of course, too, I hope you know too that they're also liberalizing now the possibility of states generating their own power. So all of these are all efforts to step up the power generation capacity.
All right, now let's move away from the power sector as we move into the stock exchange market, where you have different companies trading every now and then. Now, one would have expected that at this point in time, where among those the sectors that perform well at the stock exchange is the banking sector, then maybe the insurance sector should have even picked a little bit, maybe they're performing a bit like the banking sector. But according to reports, at 9.98% decline, insurance leads banking index as worst performing sectors on the Nigerian exchange.
I do not know why you think that banking and insurance should have performed when, in actual fact, it's the time of oil and gas.
Well, does it have to be the time of oil and gas? Because often when there is a problem in business of people, or maybe fire outbreak, disaster, or they start calling for help, but repeatedly people have, a lot of experts have advised business people to take on insurance packages. But one would have thought that with different business springing up and every other awareness, this sector should be at least experiencing a bit of boom.
Okay, I agree with you, vaguely that yes, you expect. I am actually as surprised as you are, but currently the reason alleged for the poor performance of the insurance subsector is poor audit of the first quarter. So let's look at what the audit of second quarter will bring up. That poor audit may not be unrelated to being unable to capture all the premiums, that is revenue lines of the insurance company. So I think that in the second quarter, after the audit of the second quarter, which should be available now, about a week from now, they should be able to come up with, bounce back. Yes.
Okay, well, we hope for that to happen. Let's look at consumption of insurance products. Like I said, it's quite a surprise that with the number of businesses that are being registered every now and then, and businesses that are being set up, we still don't have it as a culture where as you're registering your business, you're taking off insurance cover for your business. How can that be protocol?
The truth of the matter is that a number of more important issues take backstage for a few less avoidable, for a few avoidable issues in setting up business in Nigeria. Tell you what, insurance, especially of premises, of goods in transit, and of a few other risks, is supposed to be a must-do for most businessmen. For all businessmen, sorry. Knowing very well that once your business goes down, getting up is impossible. But if you hedge against that risk by taking a policy, you just might, it will not be as bad as, because everything that happens around us is the devil. They are pursuing me. But I do not think that it is all the devil that made business mishap. It is wisdom for you to take insurance to hedge against some of those. But the point again is this, like I said, there are a few expenses that seem to, crowd out your wanting to take insurance. i.e. power power for businesses.
Okay.
The high cost of power, for instance, companies that have to run diesel,
okay,
you know, for their generator, companies that have to pay very high to generate the power that runs their operation, find it difficult to look at other very important business expense. Insurance is one of those that most businessmen will just say, let's leave it to God.
Okay.
When it does happen.
And hope that nothing bad
happens. They hope that nothing bad happens. But something bad do happen, not because you are an evil man.
Okay.
It's just the normal course of business. It does happen. But then again, by the time regulators begin to make some of these things mandatory.
Okay.
So you look, businessmen will begin to look when they come for audits, when they come for regulatory process, they begin to take some of these processes as requirements. For instance, putting a car on the road, as basic as that, putting a car on the road, it is a must for every car on the road to have insurance. But how many of our cars on the road do have insurance? Then again, take it back to how claims are paid.
Okay, I was coming to that because it's a two-way traffic.
Yes, take it to where for most insurance activity, you just look like a one-way traffic. Okay. After you have paid the money, when you put in claims, of course, for one reason or the other,
it takes a very long process.
Long process would have been good. It takes an unending process and then of course for plenty technicality, which you would not be aware of when you were signing on those policies, becomes why they will not pay your claim. So because of those discouragements, so I think that as the business community becomes a lot more sensitized on taking insurance policy, regulators too should look at how claims are paid, because for flimsy reasons you just throw out the claims of
and it doesn't seem like the burden of proof that you were not responsible for whatever befell your business, either your goods were lost or were stolen, or it's a natural disaster. If you're unable to satisfactorily, and that's satisfactorily according to the insurance company, if you're unable to satisfactorily prove that you were not responsible, then of course you don't get claims.
Look at it. I could use English to tell that you did not satisfactorily.
Yes.
The more thing to look at is regulators should look at how unreasonable the insurance companies could be in telling you that you did not satisfy the requirement for a claim to be paid. Because it's, as more claims are paid, that becomes, as it was like your in the religious setting, as more claims are paid, then that becomes incentive, the conviction for those who are not presently
to come on board.
That is it. So the wider the insurance dragnet would want to go is a function of how those who are presently enjoying the service of insurance, when claims are, if I tell you that, look, last year I did a claim on my XYZ property and I got paid like in 30 days, that claim was processed and I was credited. Of course, it will be encouraged, and that will be the testimony with which they would want to market. But that is certainly where the issues are. That is two-way thing, just like you said. Much as I want to encourage businessmen to take, more policies for their business cover, because it is not the devil that caused business mishap, I think too that regulators should look at how the insurance pay claims to of their customers.
Okay, and it should be like an across-board policy.
Of course,
it's not like it differs or it's left to be determined by the insurance companies. Okay, this is how we do our own. If you're able to meet this requirement, if you're able to prove satisfactorily according to us, then you get claims paid to you. It should just be something across board.
No, it is something that should be very clear.
Okay.
From when you are even signing on the policy, the policies should be very, very clear. If they needed to send you to, a department to explain to you the services you are signing on for, they should do that. Because in some instances, you see claimants now getting to the extent of wanting to make trouble and all of that, which is unnecessary.
Okay.
Which is unnecessary.
They were not really aware of
they
the
were
package
unaware.
they were taking on and what it means.
Yes.
Okay.
For most insurance, this thing, they just need, third party, for instance.
Okay.
Third party, for instance. Most people just believe that you need it to pass, a police checkpoint, which is not true. You are entitled to a claim, and of course, there's even a limit, a ceiling to what claim you are entitled to. In some instances, I was just told recently, you are entitled to up to a 1 million naira claim for a third party.
And a lot of motorists are unaware of that.
A lot of motorists are unaware of that. That is a huge income going to the insurance company, which the customers believe that I'm just throwing this money away like offering to them.
Okay. Well, let's hope that the regulators at this point take it up and do the necessary, because at times when you see that a business has suffered a mishap, maybe natural disaster, fire outbreak, and so on, and they're appealing to the government to step in. And, government having so many other persons and so many other projects to attend to, if nobody comes to the rescue of that business, or if they're unable to find capital to restart again, it just goes under, and that's it. And also those who are gainfully employed in that business lose their job, and it's also a minus to the economy at the end of the day. So as we also encourage business owners to take on insurance policy, we appeal also to the regulators to ensure that it is balanced on both sides. They take on the policy and then they are able to get claims when they need claims, and it should be a quick process. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for coming on the show today. Now, if you just tuned in and you started the show late, well, I'll bring you up to speed what we'll be discussing. We began looking at the power sector, the energy crisis in the power sector, and then we also went over to the Nigerian exchange, looking at why the insurance sector have been performing poorly. So that's the show today. My name is Blessing AJ. I wish